I started a certification program because what I was seeing is that there was a number of baby planners jumping on the opportunity train to start a baby planning business. There hadn't really been a scope and boundaries to practice. There really hadn't been a code of ethics established. There was a lot of confusion with this profession. So that's where I jumped in. I saw this really great opportunity to contribute from there. And now our organization, 14 years later, is in 61 countries.
We have Mar De Carlo, a single mother who has built a very impressive online business as the founder of the International Parenting and Health Institute. She's turned her Instagram and TikTok followers into avid customers of her parenting certification in 60 plus countries around the world, and has also published 3 books. Got an amazing story behind it, which we'll go into. Today, we're going to dive into how she's done all of this, built her following, created these amazing products to fit her parenting niche. And welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me, Jack.
Like, you have a huge story behind a lot of the things that you've done, taking a look through your TikTok and Instagram and your websites and everything. But how did you kind of get started? And then when you introduce yourself to someone, what do you feel like your main purpose or main kind of value add is to the world?
For a very long time, ever since I could remember, I just really enjoy helping people and seeing people light up. I'm also an avid researcher. I like to ask a lot of questions. Why this? Why that? When I combine those two, from a very young age, every company I've worked for, every job I've held has always been one where it was more than just the job. I wanted to excel. I wanted to go far in everything that I did. And through that process, I began to learn that there was a lot of room for improvement with myself and also improvement with the companies that I worked for. As I became very passionate about health and then later on parenting, I realized how much room for improvement there was and how much I had to contribute because I was coming in from a very unique angle.
Hmm.
When I became pregnant in 2008, I had already had behind me a wealth of training and experience in the health and fitness field, both on the front end, where I was personal training and teaching classes, and both on the back end, where I was operating and managing big departments of group exercise and fitness management. So when the time came for me to venture out and take that leap of faith and become an entrepreneur, I began realizing that I had so much behind me that can contribute into the very worlds and professions that I saw needed a lot of help and where I could also learn from. Because one of the things I pride myself and I share with everyone in my circles is that no matter how much you know, there's always room for growth and improvement. Doesn't matter how many degrees you have, how many years of experience you've had. As long as you're breathing and alive, you're improving and growing every day.
Yeah. I think that's what one of the biggest quotes are for all of the top entrepreneurs in the world. It's always keep learning, never settle, pretty much. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And then, so you said you've got a background in the health and fitness, and then kind of once you got pregnant and then you then moved into the parenting space, because
Yes.
what is your main focus now? Is it the parenting space, or are you still kind of involved in the health and fitness? Because I did notice like one of your main products from everything that you do is the parenting certification. So can you go into that a little bit? Like, it started in fitness, how did it move to parenting? And then what's the main focus now? And like, what's your kind of business setup for health versus parenting at this point in time?
Absolutely. Well, the beauty about it is that both worlds merge very well. When I worked exclusively in the health and fitness industry, I worked with clients from all walks of life. I worked with parents, pregnant, postpartum. I worked with teenagers. I worked with athletes. I worked with so many different clientele. When I became pregnant and I was in a situation where I did not have family or friends close by, I also moved to a new location. I realized how many resources were available, but how much controversy and confusion there was. And I wasn't sure how to really make an informed decision at that point. So I started applying a lot of the skills and the training that I had in my background. And then I understood that I must not be the only one in this situation that is struggling to navigate through all of this. And there was so much room for self-care, because when you are going through an experience where you're a single parent, you have a child, you want to provide, you are not sure how you're going to make ends meet, you want to be there healthy and strong for your child. That's when these worlds merged. That's when, wow, I have an incredible health and fitness background, both on the front end and back end. There's so much I can contribute. And what had happened at the time was that there was this profession called baby planning that just emerged in 2008. So I caught it right at the beginning. And this profession was based on solely helping parents, expecting new parents, navigate around the world of products. When I came into this space, I said, why is no one helping parents navigate through the emotional aspects of this journey? Where they're going to have their birth. Is it going to be home or the hospital? There's no right or wrong. It's just a matter of what is a fit for you. Do you need a doula or not? What kind of support do you need? How are you going to care for yourself if you're feeling anxiety or fear during pregnancy and then postpartum? And especially if you have to return back to work, how do you deal with all these kinds of things? What are your resources available? So what I did in seeing this really great opportunity is I got involved right away. I started back then the International Baby Planner Association. And then what I did was International Academy of Baby Planners, rather. I wrote a book because I knew that in order for me to establish credibility, I needed to write something and materialize it to then offer to the profession. And then I started a certification program because what I was seeing is that there was a number of baby planners jumping on the opportunity train to start a baby planning business. But in terms of scope and boundaries to practice, which I had been very well versed in within my trainings in the past, there hadn't really been a scope and boundaries to practice. There really hadn't been a code of ethics established. There was a lot of confusion with this profession. So that's where I jumped in. I saw this really great opportunity to contribute in a way that was very passionate to my professional and personal experience. I started out with 3 women, and then it took off from there. And now our organization 14 years later is in 61 countries.
Nice. So I love the big takeaway from this story is that you identified the opportunity and sold the pickaxes and the wheelbarrows during the gold rush. Like you could have gone down the path of being like, hey, I'll become, the baby planner and make the business as a service like that. But you're like, no, let's think the next level up. Let's create the certification for this entire industry. So that's amazing insights and like a great decision that you made there. Was there anything that kind of like triggered that decision to be made? Because it sounds like you were going down the path of, executing on that career path. But then what made you think, no, I'm actually going to create the certificate instead? Or the certification,
It triggered me in so many ways. The first is the personal experience of going through that pregnancy journey and feeling a bit helpless, feeling a bit lost, and then having to pull from all my resources. The other trigger for me is that being involved in the health and wellness space and having taken a number of certifications and trainings over the many years, I'm very well versed on programs that sell you a very cookie cutter weekend learning that don't really prepare you for what is needed. And when I thought about how many families need support and how many baby planners are going to step up to help them, and if they're just going to show up in a very cookie cutter way and in a way that is there's going to be some risk and liability, I can't sit back. I'm the first one. Some teachers get annoyed by me, or they did in school, because I'm the first one. If I see something's not working, I'm going to raise my hand. If I see that there's a system broken, I want to fix it. And so my concern was not only for the industry itself, but especially for the families on the receiving end, because I thought to myself, I don't want them. And also, again, maybe my management experience, because I did a lot of hiring and letting go and interviewing for these different positions in the companies I worked for. And so that also kicked in. And I realized how many of these baby planner professionals are going to go out there, start helping families. And if they're not clear what their scope and boundaries to practice are, if they haven't had the proper practice in coaching and understanding how to coach someone, how to empower them, wow, there's so much room for liability and experiences that are not going to go so well. So I wanted to do whatever I could, knowing what I knew, to step up and contribute something that would help everybody.
So super interesting. So you took the experience from the health and wellness space, and that sort of thing, and then also thought much bigger picture, which is great. That's amazing. And you did mention that you kind of built your credibility through a book. So I know a lot of the people we interview now, they build their credibility through a big social following. But it sounds like
Yeah.
your book came first before your social following. Is that correct?
Yes.
And like, how did that all play out?
It played out very well. Even today, I run business masterminds. I do a lot of business coaching. I tell everyone that I coach, don't ever underestimate the power of writing, of getting the value of your content. It's not when you want to grow social media, it's a community. But for a community to really trust you, they need to get to know you. For them to get to know you,
Mm,
you need to have something to show them. It's
hmm
great to speak like we're speaking and to share stories and to share your degrees and your background. But when you have something in writing that you've put your heart and soul into, that you've thought about, that you have this clarity around, that you want to contribute, it gives them more of an opportunity to digest it, to sit with it, to reflect about it. And so when I presented my book, I actually reached out to a number of professionals. I reached out to many people in the financial world, not just the parenting
hmm
world, in the health world. And I presented them my book to read and my idea. It was very well received. And then I presented it further to the industry.
No, I love that approach. And self-publishing has kind of leveled the playing field a little bit because when you used to have to go and get a company to go and be your publisher, it was expensive. It was hard to kind of get your content approved. You almost already had to have the credibility to even publish a book. Whereas now the self-publishing has kind of changed that. What was the process of going through that self-publishing? Was it easy, hard? How did you do it?
It was very easy, thankfully. I am someone that I wholeheartedly believe where there's a will, there's a way. Nothing
hmm
can stop me from getting something done. Sometimes nature will slow me down and remind me that it also has its course to take and I need to follow along and be patient. So that is definitely on my path, patience. However, when I'm very focused and I know that something needs to get out there, I will find a way to do it. And so immediately when I knew that I needed to get this out there, I knew that if I had to go on the traditional publishing route, that it would take more time, I would be held back, I wouldn't know, then everything would be more of a question mark. So
hmm
I knew that if I just put this material out there, sooner than later, it's going to take hold. So I started searching different resources for self publishing. That's the first thing that I did. I
hmm
actually started with Lulu before I went to Amazon, which was very interesting. So Lulu was the easy resource for me back then. I
hmm
established that. And then what I began doing is reaching out to all of the baby planners, to again, all of the professionals. That's an important key. When you materialize anything, whether it's a book, content, video, whatever it is you're doing, people think if they just put it out there and sit back, that it'll take a life of its own. Sometimes that does happen. Things can go viral. That's beautiful. However, you don't want to just rely on that. You need to
Yep.
reach out. You need to let people know you're there, right? Whether you're putting together a little letter in an email or whether you're sending out some brochures to your local community, it's important to establish relationships, to collaborate, to network, to let people know what you're doing, why you're doing it. They will also feel your passion and drive behind it. Some people may not be interested, a lot of people will. And that
Mm.
is really how you begin establishing a following in a community. Then it becomes, what's your social media handle? Oh, where are you mostly? Okay, great. And then you connect there. But thankfully,
Mm.
when I started this, it was on the cusp where Instagram just began. TikTok really, I believe it was Musically back then. So
hmm
I started all of this on the cusp of social media. And so that is why through this journey, I see very clearly that even if at this point in time we have more accessibility to the social media, to the ads on social media, don't just rely on that. Continue to connect with your community,
Mm.
collaborate, establish those relationships. That is key.
That's amazing. And it sounds like the main takeaway here was just literally, yeah, outreach to all the important people in your industry and building those partnership and connections.
Mhm.
Is that what you think was one of the big driving factors for the success of your book?
100%. Word then got around because till this day, word of mouth is still top. It's still up there, right? It's still pretty much, I would say, a high percentage of being number one. The word spread very quickly. As soon as people knew what I was doing, they told one person who told another person, another person. Before I knew it, I had not done any paid advertising. I was getting contacted from different countries around the world. It was so incredible. I was like, wow, I haven't done any paid advertising. I haven't done any outreach in any specific country. And yet I'm hearing from France. I'm hearing from England. It was incredible. But that's how the power of word of mouth and the word spreading. I will say, I did put out a press release. I put a press release out in my local community. That also helped. So I got the press release out in the local paper. Don't underestimate the local newspapers. Everybody thinks you have to go big and go to the, LA Times or, whatever, US News and World Report. But start with your local community paper. That word will spread. Then other media resources will catch on to that. And then that will grow as well.
Nice. Love that. And then was your main form of outreach, you were just like emailing these people, or were you like sending them your book? What was the main way that you were sort of getting in front of these people that would then, you know, creating all of that word of mouth for you?
Yes. So what I did is I made a list of professionals in my community and around the world that I thought would be a really great support system for the work that I was doing, and who not only I could provide them value, but they could provide me value. Whenever you're networking and collaborating, remember it's about giving and receiving. So the mindset that I had and still have today is if I'm going to establish a relationship with anyone, it's how can we give to one another? It's not just, oh, here's my book, here's what I want to give you. Can you help me out? It's how can I support you? Right. So as much as you are going to receive my book, there's some value that I can bring to you as well. So with that mindset, I reached out and I wrote a letter that I put both in email and also in written form, that whenever I was out in person, I could hand out, and as well as email, I could electronically put out there as well. And basically, in this letter, it was just about the industry, the potential of the industry, what was going on, why there's a need, how I'm contributing, where they could also add value by coming into this space. And so it was, both sides. I presented both sides.
Nice. Love that. That's amazing. Yeah, very thoughtful on how to kind of launch the book, because I do think
Mhm.
that's, one of the hardest things about having a book. Like a lot of people can write the book or produce the content, but like very few seem to get the kind of like the book launch or the promotion of it right. So that you need like, yeah, amazing content plus amazing launch strategy. And it seems like you nailed both of those.
Yes, and part of that launch strategy too, because I actually recently updated my baby planner book many years later, is essentially giving copies away for free. Having
Mm,
a promotional period where you say, I have these digital copies you can download, spread the words, get it out there. That's another
hmm
great way to build trust, for people to get to know you. So I did all sorts of things like that then, and I still do that now.
Nice. Okay. And so, for the listeners who are just kind of starting out, they might have an audience or they might have a passion or they might even be in the parenting or health space. Where was the first $1,000 that you made online? Like, I know the first $1,000 is always the hardest. So, how
Mhm.
did you kind of start generating income online from all of
Yes,
the things that you're doing?
it happened. I kid you not, overnight. So I was down to my last $20. I was living in my cash. I also had savings and credit cards, but I didn't want to dive so deep into the credit card. And what happened was I was offered a few opportunities to go back to management work. And I also was given an opportunity to work with a high end client full time. But what that meant, being a first time mom, was that I would have to leave my daughter full time in the care of someone else to work. So I did have the capability of earning money from my background and I had those wonderful opportunities, but a part of me was gnawing at me and just said, you're a first time mom, you don't have close family or friends, you don't have family or close friends in your area, you're new to the area. Something did not feel right for me at that point in time to leave my daughter so many hours and her being so young. So I didn't want to give into that. I had a lot of pushback from friends and family who were telling me, you're crazy. You have to do that. What else are you going to do? It's impossible. You can't make $1,000 overnight. Well, in fact, I made over $3,000 overnight, because
Nice.
what happened was I slowed down. This is when I knew I had to slow down. In my background, I already had a lot of training and understanding that when things go awry, when you are stuck, one of the best things you can do is not panic, but slow down. Quiet
hmm
down the mind, slow down. It seems counterintuitive, but taking space and giving yourself space and putting the question out there. okay, what do I do here? What's the solution? And then reminding myself where there's a challenge, there's an opportunity. Just stay
Hmm.
calm. The answer will come. So I did this for about 3 days. When my daughter was napping, I would take her in the stroller. I would do some walks, just really quiet it down. On the third day, I had this vision of the book, the certification, and I also knew that I had to reach out. I had to do outreach.
Mm,
I didn't necessarily need to let people know my personal details,
hmm.
but I could give them an idea of where I'm at and the help and support that I need. So what I did is I put a letter out there, email, and I shared with my community that at this point in time, I was looking for someone to help me with my business, either take over momentarily so I could be there for my daughter and they would get a cut, or I
Hmm.
would just sell my business altogether that I had established. And this business, by the way, was at the time I was doing coaching and consulting. So I hadn't grown the organization yet.
Okay.
Well, what happened is I had a few people reach out to me, 3 women specifically, who said, we have been following you along the way. We cannot take over your business, right? They
Hmm.
communicated this in different manners, but basically the same message. However, we want to learn what you're doing. We want to start a business like you did. We want to coach like you're coaching. Can you teach us
Hmm.
how to do that?
Mm.
That's where the light bulb went off. And that's where I realized, oh my goodness, this is such a great opportunity because now I can create a greater impact. Everything that I've been working to support my clients with, I can now train other people to do and do it in a way that is systematically appropriate, following the
Hmm.
scope and boundaries of practice and guidelines. That's where then I knew, okay, we got to get serious about this. They asked me, how much does it cost? Quickly, I went through my calculations. I came up with the price
Hmm.
and they signed up. This all happened
Nice.
within a matter of days, and the money then came overnight. And then I got through that first month. It was incredible. Because I was so
Nice.
grateful for that experience, Jack, I knew I'm someone that I like to go above and beyond. That's me, right? I want to deliver and I want to deliver above and beyond. So I knew that I had to deliver at that point in time because these
Hmm.
women were invested in me. They believed in me. Life was giving me this tremendous opportunity. And that's where I was like, okay, I'm going to give you everything that I know and more. And that's how it all started.
Nice. Okay, so they were essentially the first three people to go through your parenting certificate.
Yes. It was the
Nice.
baby planner certification. Yes.
Baby plan certification. Fantastic. And
Mhm.
then for that certification, what did that involve? Was it just kind of like training material? Was it in-person training? Like what was the certification? Just for anybody
So
listening
this
who's
is
thinking about
where
doing a certification in their own space.
exactly. This is again very interesting mystery of life because I'm a people person. I love
Yeah.
working in person with people that have been the majority of my life. Here I was being presented this online opportunity, and these women could not travel at that point in time. It would be too much for them. So they were asking if we could do online training. Absolutely. I'm someone that, as I already shared with you, I always find a solution to any challenge. So I jumped on it right away, but I knew we had to have a system in place. I knew I needed, at the time, I was using WebEx. I knew I needed a platform for video. I knew that I needed to create PowerPoints. I knew that I needed to record lessons and also have online mentoring. So what I started doing is creating a system for all of that right away. Just in the same way I created my book and the chapters for my book and all the themes that I knew needed to be included in there, the same exact thing happened here. I started with what does this industry need? What is it lacking? Where can they excel the most? Where they can contribute the most value? And then, of course, I left open room for them to ask me specific questions so that I could also customize according to where they're at on their path, on their professional path. So then I did a combination of those, and that's how it began. And then, funny enough, people started coming forward shortly after that, asking how they could be part of the organization, asking how they could teach in their language, because it was only English. And then slowly it became, all right, we're going to teach this program in Portuguese, we're going to teach this program in Spanish, and so on. And just to give you a little bit of insight, you might segue into this, but just to show you how interesting business is and how it can fluctuate and expand. About a year later, I was met with a professional in the sleep industry who shared with me that there was a lot of room for improvement there, some inconsistencies across the board, and what was going on. And I immediately saw, based on my background, that I have so much to contribute there as well. So I went with what life was presenting me. That took off. I created and developed a program for that as well with everything that I knew. And now that's become the company's baby planning is still taking off, but that's actually become our number one product, if you will, or certification program in our company, both the adult sleep and the child sleep.
Wow, interesting. Yeah. So essentially, you're making these curriculums, giving the certification, and then people are using that certification as valid proof when they go out and get their own customers to be like, hey, can you teach my baby how to sleep better? And they'd be like, yep, I've got this certificate from Mar, blah, blah, blah. So I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. And then you've kind of
Yeah.
took that from the baby industry and then replicated it in the sleep industry because you saw a very similar trend in both those niches. Is
Yeah,
that right?
similar and different, of course, because the sleep industry has its own set of challenges and loopholes, let's put it that way. So I had to then evaluate it, like a new business, what's going on there. What I will tell you is I purposely chose International Parenting and Health Institute as my business name and not Mar De Carlo for the very reason that I don't want it to be just about me. Yes, I have a lot to contribute, but I wanted them to really understand the credibility of an organization and what this really meant and growing that reputation. That's the first thing. The second thing is people do challenge the idea of having a certification, and I do not disagree with those challenges. I understand why people say, do you really need a certificate? Do you really need a certification? If you are enrolled in a program that is a cookie cutter weekend program, it's based on theory, you're just going to take quizzes. I support your idea of you don't need a certification. Okay. You're probably going to learn more in the practice on the front lines. What I bring to the table with this company is that it's not just a certification where you're coming in and you're taking quizzes and you're learning theory and we're boasting about things. No, what we're doing is we're showing you the ins and outs of each of these industries, what's involved in them, the history of them, what's going on from all angles, the controversies, the challenges, where you fit in, what you need to know to fit in, and then how to actually coach, because you can be the best sleep expert in the world, but if you don't know how to show up for someone, how to slow down, how to actively listen, how to ask empowering questions, because a lot of coaches, unfortunately, they make assumptions and they just jump to conclusions. So if you don't know how to do that, you're doing your client already a disservice, because the changes that they make in their life, if they want them to be long lasting, they need to come from an intrinsic motivational drive, not just from my coach told me so, right? So the certification programs are designed so that there's a huge practical component to them where they must, after every module, put into practice what they're learning. They work with volunteers. They go through an entire coaching process. So they're practicing how to show up. And in turn, it also becomes a personal development, because the more you put things into practice, you begin to learn about yourself. Like, oh, I thought I was patient, but I'm not. Or, wow, I thought I don't jump to conclusions, but actually I do. So you learn a lot about yourself in the process, which is what I love about this work so much. This is what happened to me. I learned so much about myself through this journey. And you learn how to show up for other people in a way that's non-judgmental. Of course, as human beings, we will still have our internal judgments and voices, but meaning you learn to quiet those down. You learn that they don't serve a purpose in that moment in time. And you show up how you really need to show up to empower someone else. So that's where I become very passionate about our certification, because it's more than just a piece of paper, right? These people really earn it. They spend a lot of hours practicing.
Mm. So I'm sure your certification has changed a lot since when you first started. How is it currently administered? Is it a curriculum with an online course and then like in-person sessions? Like what is the
Mhm.
curriculum kind of built out to now in today's world versus what you did like many years ago to start out for your first three students?
I'm happy you asked that question, because this is a very interesting journey. Initially, when this started out, it was all online, and there was a lot of online live mentoring sessions, meaning that there would be pre recorded sessions, but we would always be following up every week, checking in with the group, mentoring. Then a few years later, because of what we began evaluating, we started seeing that, oh, perhaps not everybody's able to join live. Therefore, we're going to do some self paced curriculums where they don't necessarily need to show up live. So we tried it out. What I learned along this journey is that no matter how wonderful your program is, You cannot replace live interaction. We are primarily online just because it's most convenient for the majority of our audience. As much as we'd love to be in person, it's more about maybe having those 1 year events. For the studying piece, because many of our, I would say, participants are either in a professional field where they're already very busy. For example, we have pediatricians, we have nurses, et cetera, or they're parents very busy with their children. For them to then take out physical time to travel, all of that is inconvenient and is not practical and realistic. So staying online is very important for them and vital. However, what I learned is you cannot replace the live interaction. There's nothing like the live interaction. When people are engaging with you like we're engaging, there's magic to that. It takes another life. When someone is learning on their own, which we all can, there's nothing, we encourage, I'm always learning on my own. But when you're wanting to start a business or grow a business or jump into a new profession, having that live interaction takes it to places that you would not have imagined, that really support your learning and your growth and also motivate you. Because the level of motivation when you're in a group setting, when you're working with a mentor, helps you show up in a way that holds that accountability even stronger than before.
No, that's really nice insights into how you should structure your curriculums, because I agree with you. Like if you're not held accountable, it's very easy to, just fast forward the video or check off, yep, that module is done. So it's interesting that you kind of tried both ways and that was the feedback. Or not feedback, but final analogy of sort of what worked and what didn't. So do you think at the moment...
I'm sorry, I'm just going to add that little piece in. We do have course feedback.
Yeah.
So one thing for business owners, for everybody, whether you have a certification program or not, it is important for you to get direct feedback from your customers. We do it anonymously because we want them to feel safe, right? We don't want them to feel singled out, like, or are they not going to like me if I say that something needs room for improvement? So what we do is we just put an anonymous survey that after they complete the certification program, they can write us back and let us know what worked, what didn't work, where we can improve, and so on. And I highly recommend that for every business owner, no matter if you have a certification program or you're selling a product, whatever it is.
Nice, love that. Final questions I'll wrap up with, because I know I've kept you for a while here. What do you feel like is the number one source of acquiring new people for your certification at the moment? Where do you feel like all of these people are finding out about you and enrolling in the certification? What's your main referral source, do you think?
The three top, well, I will tell you because we're always evaluating. So 3 top is word of mouth, get constant referrals. On our intake forms, we have a question, how did you hear about us? So we know right away. We're always measuring that. Word of mouth, Google search, that's a big one. Get from all over the world. It's incredible. And then also online, particularly for us, Instagram. But the reason for Instagram is because we've been on that platform the longest, more than the other platforms. So I will just say that when it comes to social media, there's all these, how do you say, there's a lot of advice and rules about which platform does what. One does sales, one does growth. Okay, while there's some truth to that, at the end of the day, it really is about where are you most established? Where have you built your community most? And so on. And so for us, it happens to be Instagram. And so we do get a lot of DMs and people reaching out to us from seeing our posts and saying, oh, I would love to learn more. Those are our top 3 sources. But I would say word of mouth, Google search, if I had to put them in order of priority, and then the social media would be in third.
Nice. Yeah, I suppose the Google search works because it's so specific in what you're offering, which is great. Okay. Well, Ma, thank you so much for all the time today. If you were to leave just on a final note where people could learn more about your certifications, your books, what you're up to, what you're doing, it sounds like Instagram's your main spot, but let us know where we can find out more about you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jack. Our website is parentinghealthinstitute.com. On parentinghealthinstitute.com, you will also see how you can connect with us on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, and so on. So you can find more about us there if you want to learn. We are also going to be launching business mastermind programs because one of the things I love doing besides supporting these certifications is helping businesses and helping businesses in a practical way, like we were sharing with Jack. So you will feel uncomfortable. I have had our group go through vocal exercises, go through scripts for acting, and go through all sorts of things that place them in a slightly uncomfortable place. However, they are training their confidence, they're training their ability to communicate clearly, things like that. So that'll be launching very soon. I want to share with all of you. And I also want to say to anyone listening out there, this journey of becoming an entrepreneur in whatever field you're in, doesn't have to be parenting or health, any field that you're in, it requires consistency, it requires commitment and dedication. It's like going to the gym on a daily basis. If you want those muscles to grow, if you want to get better at your cardio, it's not going to happen if you're not serious about it. If you're going to miss it, a few days and just come here, come there. You have to show up, you have to be committed. And remember that failure, falling down, is a stepping stone to your success, because that's what I get all the time. So when you have those days that you're met with challenges, invite them in and recognize that that's part of your growth, of your athletic journey of entrepreneurship. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Don't give up, hang in there, and continue to fuel yourself with the resources, whether it's a podcast like this, where you're hearing inspirational stories, whether it's another person that you tune into that you just know gives you that extra energy. Take those people, gather those people in your life that can fuel you on a day-to-day basis. And lastly, take care of your health, because you are your business. Okay. You are your business. So your business is going to do as well as you're doing well. If you're sick, if you're feeling tired, your business is not going to thrive as much. You might get away with it, but imagine how much more you'll be thriving if you're showing up in strength. So take care of yourself. Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm very passionate, Jack, as you can see. I just want to say that I see that happen. I see people give up easily. And it's like, no, it's not that you're not doing well. It's just you're not practicing. Okay. You're not showing up consistently. Just keep doing it. And then I also see people like, oh, I don't need sleep. I don't need to take care of my health. I was like, no, you do. That's your business. So anyway, thank you. Thank you for this time.
No, of course. And just a few points. Hustle culture is kind of tough in the US. It's kind of sometimes leads you in the wrong direction. And I agree with you. You 100% need to get your sleep, get your food, get your exercise in. Because if you can't operate at 100%, there's no way your business can. So love that insights. And thank you so much for all the time. It's super valuable and very interesting how you've set up all your certificates and everything. Amazing job at, turning such an interesting niche into such a thriving business. So congratulations.
Thank you very much, Jack. It's been a pleasure.
Hey guys, we put a bunch of effort into making great content for this YouTube channel. So please hit subscribe, leave us a comment, hit like, and tell a few friends about it.